Friends, good evening and welcome to SPTV News Live Nighttime Edition. I was originally going to do this video yesterday in the afternoon after the previous one that we did, but some shit came up, so I rescheduled it for this morning. More shit came up. So we have it at night. So apologies for the delay. Rescheduling is only if an emergency comes up like the other day. But here we are, and it actually gave me a little bit more time to do some digging on this most uninteresting topic. Uninteresting in the way of who the hell gives a rat's ass about Jada Pinkett-Smith, let alone a lot of Hollywood stars, but it's an excellent study in not only narcissism, but the cult of Scientology, which you're basically saying one and the same. So what we're going to discuss here, and it's almost like Jane Smith can read my mind because we're going to start off with a clip from HG Tudor. But before we get into that, just to give you a brief idea of what we're going to be covering today, Jada Pinkett-Smith put out a recent memoir, how self-important is that at middle age, right? Called Worthy, which should be retitled, in my opinion, to Unworthy, as it should go in the nearest bonfire and or dumpster. Jokes aside, man, this is a book where the reason I want to start out with HG Tudor and why I'm glad Jane brought that up is because she is a classic study in being a narcissist. And this will help explain all the bullshit that she put in that book. And one of the bullshit things that she put in the book was downplaying the shit out of her Scientology involvement. So was she a Scientologist or not? And also, do those ideas still rattle around in hers, Will Smith's, and her kids' brains? So we'll lay out the evidence. You make of it what you will by the end. And we're going to start off with a clip from HG Tudor giving us a little bit of background on who Jada is. We're going to go into we're going to read the background about her academy that she opened up, which was a Scientology front group, which she claims wasn't, called New Horizons. We're going to talk about her father's involvement in Narconon, the fake, very dangerous pseudo drug rehabilitation / Scientology front group that she got her father involved in. He's since passed away, by the way, RIP. I'm sure he had a very difficult relationship with his narcissist daughter. And then we're gonna hear from the principal of the Scientology front group, a teacher from the Scientology front group. We're going to go over briefly the red table talk where Leah Remini herself got a little bit manipulated, but held her ground against Jada Pinkett-Smith when these allegations came out. And then we're going to talk briefly about Narconon, and then we'll end off with questions and we'll cover them as we usually do throughout the broadcast. So if you have any questions, please, throw up those question marks. It's always a participatory chat, and I'd like to hear what you guys have to say as we roll along with this. So we'll bring you over here in the chat. Well, actually, let me lead this off with what Jane brought up. Again, it's like we can read minds, my friend. So I'd love to see what would happen if HG Tudor and Jada met. My money would be on HG, but Jada could challenge him a bit. The cat and mouse game would be interesting to watch. And just so you guys know, HG Tudor is on YouTube. He schools us on narcissists, and he himself is an ultra narcissistic psychopath. Most interesting. And he also, as Jane points out, did a series on Jada. We've done like 14 or 15 interviews with HG Tudor. There's another one in a few weeks that we have scheduled. Jada and many other people are covered in that series. Highly recommend checking it out if you haven't. Also check out HG Tudor's channel, and I'll link in the description box this series if you care to watch it, where he breaks down Jada's background. So without further ado, let's start off with the man himself, and then we'll jump off from there. So let me get you guys over here in the chat. This is HG Tudor, the aforementioned narcissistic psychopath, talking the other day about Jada.
Jada Pinkett-Smith. Chris Rock asked me out on a date. Jada Pinkett-Smith is a narcissist. I've explained elsewhere in detail why that is. And Will Smith, her husband, apparently the one that she's estranged from, is her empathic victim. He's caught very much in her manipulations and the fog of his own emotional thinking. And that's why he has repeatedly continued to engage with her rather than making good a fulsome escape from her. People.com tells us Jada Pinkett-Smith says Chris Rock asked her out on a date amid rumours she and Will were divorcing. He called me and basically he was like, "I'd love to take you out." And I was like, "What do you mean?" I think we can safely file this under bullshit. Why? Because these are the deluded ramblings of a narcissist. I've explained to you that another narcissist, this one's wife, aka Harry's wife, operates with a default setting that all women want to dress like her and be like her, and all men want to knock her hip out. Jada Pinkett-Smith has a similar outlook. She believes that many people look upon her and think, "Do you know what? She is amazing. She's a talented actress, podcaster, broadcaster. She has been a brilliant mother. She has created her own business. She regularly understands other people and quite readily puts herself out there for the greater good of humanity to allow themselves to understand her. And naturally, she is a beacon of sexual attraction to both men and women. And who could blame Chris Rock for asking her out?" The article explains Jada Pinkett-Smith hasn't spoken to Chris Rock since the Oscars incident, but she hopes everyone involved can find peace. Patronising facade management. The actress, who, funnily enough, and by no means anything to do with the fact why she's appearing so much in the press recently, has a book out on October the 17th called Worthy. She tells people in a candid new interview that no.
Okay, so I just wanted to bring it up to, she's definitely a narcissist, and she's just a classic study in that. And that book, Worthy, HG's been hitting on his channel. So what's the controversy, and what the hell did she actually say in that book? So let's start. Jada Pinkett-Smith is debunking the continuous rumors around her uses of Scientology teaching methods in her memoir, Unworthy. In 2017, former Scientology member and actor Leah Remini accused Pinkett-Smith, rightfully so, alongside with their husband Will, of also being members of the cult. The two chalked up Remini's allegations to a previous miscommunication on a Red Table Talk episode in 2020 that will be covered towards the end. Pinkett-Smith asserts she is, quote, never been a fan of organized religion, and that she encountered a variety of faiths at a young age. This enabled her to avoid the stigma of many people hold against Scientologists. The reason we opened up with that clip, by the way, with HG, is so that you can understand that almost everything, if not everything that she says, is not only a classical Scientology line in terms of deflecting, but also a narcissist. So she's not being truthful, and I think you'll see that as we carry on with the broadcast. Still, she acknowledges she was never a member of the church. One thing about that real quick, too. There's no point in a Scientologist career where they ask you to become a member. The way it kind of works is there is a membership called the IAS, which stands for International Association of Scientologists. This is the fee that you pay once a year in order to have discounted costs and prices on your books, your tape lectures, the auditing, and any other horseshit you purchase from Scientology. So technically there's a membership, but you don't have to be a member of the IAS to be a member of Scientology. They lead you into it. And what they did with me is you start to feel like a Scientologist after a while. And they may ask you, like they did me, are you a Scientologist? Do you identify as a Scientologist? Something along the lines of that. But there's nothing in policy that says when you do or don't become a member. I can guarantee you the amount of time that Jada, as you're going to see, spent at Celebrity Center, opening up her school via a front group called Applied Scholastics, etc. Her involvement, in my opinion, definitely would make her not only a member, but quite involved at one point, if she's still not involved. Carrying on. So she's still, this is manipulation number one. So still, she acknowledges she was never a member of the cult. Quote, and this is another bullshit thing. Nobody's ever said this when they walk into Celebrity Center. I was very clear when I stepped into the cult of Scientology that becoming a member would not be possible, nor was it my goal. That was enough, I would say, to get her to say, for them at the cult to say, there's the door. There's the book Unworthy. Because, my friends, they're very, when you go, let's say you just walked into, now she's a celebrity. I just want to say something real quick, but let's say you walked into Celebrity Center and you weren't a celebrity, and you don't have to be, or any local cult chapter. They're very, very, they pay attention to you. It is a secret society, man. So they feel you out, and they're not going to let you come down there unless they actually consider that you want to be involved, that you're not there like Nasty Nathaniel, the evil SP, to audit them, for example, and not on the soup cans. Nasty Nathaniel will go around and make sure that they, that they abide by the First Amendment ability for them to be filmed without freaking out. So just wanted to let you know that she's already manipulating and lying. They're not going to let you into the church unless they have you very well feeled out and that you pass the quote unquote test. That would be the personality test to make sure you want to be there. And they lead you in slowly, where you don't have to be a member or anything right out of the gate, but you definitely have to have interest. Carrying on. Okay, make sure I'm on the right page. So in the book Unworthy, Pinkett-Smith says she opted to, quote, embrace, as in entanglement, embrace the church's basic study manual while homeschooling her children. The book, according to a synopsis, promises to, quote, improve your concentration, improve your ability to learn, enjoy what you are studying, and apply what you study. Orwellian translation, it's the bait to lead you into the cheese to put you under the mind control of Scientology. And it's a very clever step and way of doing so. In order to expose her children to, quote, teachers and peers of color in a setting of inclusion, the Smiths launched New Village Leadership Academy in 2008. That's what we're going to be discussing. They paid $890,000 for a 3-year lease on the formerly Indian High School in Calabasas. Calabasas is a very rich place, right on the outskirts of Hollywood/California, where a lot of actors and rich people hang out at and live. It was then that Pinkett-Smith hired faculty and incorporated Scientology's legally secular study technology into the educational curriculum. Quote, study tech has a component for helping a child gain a sense of self-determinism with respect to whatever is being taught, she wrote. While the actor has maintained it was, quote, not a Scientology school, total bullshit, several teachers and administrators have spoken out disputing her claim, and the private school shut down in June 2013. Quote, eventually, I stopped paying attention to the criticism and judgment of others about how to raise my kids. Typical narcissistic fashion, just deflect, take no responsibility for what it really was, and if anybody criticizes her, go fuck yourself. Quote, there's no cookie-cutter ways to raise children, and the only concern any of us should have is making sure we're paying attention to what our individual child needs. Well, part of that, Jada, would be not getting them involved in a cult. So Jada Pinkett-Smith has recently confessed she prefers Scientology to homeschool her children over traditional learning. In her new memoir, Worthy, the actress shared that the use of Scientology helped Jaden and Willow attain, quote, 100% proficiency with a subject instead of just learning things by rote. So you can see here already, she not only hasn't denounced Scientology, she still considers the study tech, at least, to be very good for her children. Maybe that explains why they're so fucking crazy. Stand by. So Jada clarified that she wasn't a member of the cult of Scientology and said her goal was, quote, to embrace, again, entangle with the basic study manual, to educate myself about a method of learning. In her memoir, the actress opened up about homeschooling her own children as she wanted them to be able to travel with her and Will when they were out for work. Jada disclosed that Jaden, quote, thrived with homeschooling, but Willow was, quote, asked to attend a regular school when she was middle school age. The actress, that's stretching it. The actress penned in her new upcoming book, quote, some of the controversy about my approach to education probably had to do with the use of study technology learning method I discovered when I was introduced to the cult. The goal of study tech is to help a student achieve one, blah, blah, blah. The system offers many different processes for how to engage children in their education and create habits that make them lifelong learners. No, it doesn't. It gets them inoculated and indoctrinated into the cult as the first step. Meanwhile, Jada also mentioned that she turned to Scientology after her father suffered a severe relapse from drug addictions. After she sent her father to a cult drug treatment program. This is a Scientology front group called Narconon, which we'll discuss later. Jada claimed that within a month, he went from being close to death to fit and strong, a transformation she dubbed a miracle. So there you go. We got the academy that she opened up, and we got her taking her father to Narconon. I suggest, in my opinion, she was introduced to Scientology through Tom Cruise. He was dating Katie Holmes at the time. You're going to see some pictures of them hanging out, and often Narconon or the study tech, let alone opening up a whole school full of Scientology staff members and using the study tech. That was probably Tom Cruise's doing, and they were definitely, at least at one point, heavily involved. So is this all just rumor, or is this, is this bullshit? Well, what does the former principal have to say? So, of course, Jada Smith was a Scientologist, says principal who ran her Scientology school. Back in the spring of 2015, your proprietor, and this is Tony Ortega's blog, and Mike Rinder sat down with Daily Beast writer Marlo Stern as part of, okay, let's just get into this. That assertion caused a bit of a media storm. We had really good Okay, I want to actually go down to this, which is her speaking shortly. So we've known that her, meaning the actual principal, that since bailed the school and the school itself shut down. So we've known for years that the dedicated Scientologist in the family was Will's wife, Jada Pinkett-Smith. In 2008, the Smiths opened up a private school that used Scientology study technology and also used ideas from Scientology's, quote, ethics. The school was financed for 3 years by the Smiths, then struggled to bring in enough funding to continue, and it closed in 2013. And then we have an excellent source very close to Will who told us that the actor was a dabbler who had an interest in all religion, quote, but belonged to none of them. Again, that can just be a PR word. Every Scientologist would say that, including myself when I was in the cult. Nobody really wants to kind of admit it. So there's many and various ways that you're taught how to deny that you're a Scientologist. But I do think he was the dabbler, and that Will was the Will was the dabbler, and she was the one, of course, wearing the pants in the family that was involved. So here we go. If Will enforced Scientology at the academy, it was an experiment he and his wife were trying 7 years ago. So where are we at here? Let me go to the important part. So we were a little surprised last week when Marlo Stern came out with a new piece after interviewing Leah Remini, and he pretended that it was shocking new information that Jada had been into e-meters and auditing. And not only, okay, this is not the part I wanted to get to. Apologies. So she puts out a series of tweets. Okay, here it is. As the 2007-2008 school year continued, Oliver, this is the principal, says she was busy branding the new school and working out a lease for a building. In June 2008, Will Smith's movie Hancock was opening, and Oliver says she was present when one of Smith's partners talked to him about promoting the film. His business partner, James Lasseter, was telling him, quote, don't fucking let Scientology get in the way of this movie. Don't let the school and Scientology get in the way of the bottom line. I'm paraphrasing, but that's a point of what he said, Oliver says. So, the rent on the empty former school they found was reportedly $900,000 for 3 years. And so the Smiths, through a trust they controlled, loaned the school's controlling corporation $1.235 million, covering the rental cost and a little more. That seed money gave the school 3 years to try and become self-financing through tuition and fundraising, and it opened for classes in the fall of 2008. The timing turned out to be unfortunate for the Smiths, however, because 2008 was, of course, the year that Anonymous came onto the scene. And that happened to be literally the month that Anonymous came onto the scene, January 2008. I snapped out of Scientology. So Anonymous was active, and even just opening a school that used Scientology materials was enough to produce picket lines and brought the school unwanted attention in the press. At the time, however, Oliver insisted to reporters that the school was strictly secular and had nothing to do with the cult of Scientology itself. Again, it is secular, but that's how they sneak, whether it's Narconon or Applied Scholastics or the study tech, that's how they sneak people into Scientology, by doing it, quote, legally. So she was fired a year later, however, because the truth was the opposite, she admitted to us. The Smiths not only wanted Scientology materials used in class, but they were also submitting the children to Scientology concepts of ethics, which is the cult's euphemism for control. Oliver had believed she could minimize the Scientology content and produce a fine private school, but the Smiths had other ideas and replaced her with a friend who was a Scientologist. But remember, the Smiths had only financed the first 3 years of the school, after which their children, Jaden and Willow, were no longer taking classes there. Unable to raise enough money on its own to continue operations, the school closed permanently in June 2013. While the school was running, though, it had a major focus on the cult of Scientology. Quote, no teacher was allowed to interact with the kids until they had taken several Scientology courses, Oliver told us. And she herself was told to take courses at the Hollywood Celebrity Center where Jada attended classes. We asked her, was there any doubt at all that while you worked for her, that Jada Pinkett-Smith was a dedicated Scientologist? I have not one doubt about that. There's no question, she says. As for Will Smith, she says she wondered about his involvement. Quote, he either really loved Jada, yeah, man, and he really needs to fucking learn about what a narcissist is so his whole life with her can make sense and he can get the fuck out of that relationship. So, quote, he either really loved, i.e., was manipulated by Jada and then opened a Scientology school for her, or he was into it too. Probably a bit of both, right? While the school was running and their children were at the school, both of the Smiths were adamant about how Scientology materials would govern how the school ran. Today, as we said, this is Tony speaking. We believe the Smiths have walked away from Scientology. But there's little doubt that a decade ago, Jada Smith was an enthusiastic cult member, regardless of what she tells the public today. Yeah, and I would even wonder if she actually has left Scientology, man. We'll keep an eye on her, but she still is... she fucking just put out this memoir a couple days ago, and she had an opportunity to really distance herself from it. But you add her latest information about still saying that the study tech is great, etc., and the table talk, the red table talk she had with Leah. I do wonder if she might actually be perhaps what they would call an indie Scientologist. Maybe she's not going down to the cult all the time, but she could very well be practicing outside of the cult. We shall see as more information comes forward. Because if you could say anything about Jada, she's not shy. She puts foot bullets in her like any narcissist does all the time and lies, when she could just easily come clean and clear the air. So let's hear a little bit about what this principal has to actually say. So exclusive, this is the first interview with the principal of Will and Jada Smith's shuttered Scientology school. So the aforementioned Jacqueline, I'm probably not pronouncing that right, Jacqueline Oliver, that's who we just talked about. In 2007, she was hired by Will and Jada Smith to turn their homeschooling experiment into an actual bricks and mortar institution. And then a year later, this was opened up using the study tech, etc. But Oliver assured the public that the private school in Calabasas, California was strictly secular, and she played down the influence of study tech. They also paid her a fortune, by the way, my friends, too, and unless you have some pretty strong integrity, money can make you do a lot of interesting things. So she was led under false pretenses, but the money, I would say, was a huge motivation because they paid people a shitload. Continuing on. Then a year later, she was fired and replaced by a woman named Franca Compiano, also known as Piano Foster. Bitchin' name. At the time, news reports suggested that Oliver had not embraced the use of Hubbard's ideas strongly enough, which is why Campiano, a Smith family friend, was brought in to replace her. And then for the first time, she's talking about the 2 years working with the Smith. She's no longer downplaying the influence of study tech. In fact, she tells Tony that that Scientology's influence in the school was near total. And she knew that calling it secular was a sham. Her departure, she says, was definitely about her not being, quote, with the program. Good for you, Oliver. This summer, we broke the news that the New Village Leadership Academy had shut down after operating for 5 years. And we mentioned the amount of money that the Smiths put into it. Oliver's now working at a different school, thank God. A little bit about, I'll link this in the description box because I want to keep moving. I don't want to read everything, but it goes into her background about how she was a genuine, teacher. And she believed that this was a new thing that the Smiths were approaching her about that was, had nothing to do with Scientology, but was a new way of teaching. Oliver says she was also told that the school would make use of a curriculum called study technology by L. Ron Hubbard, the founder of the cult. But the Smiths stressed that the study materials were secular and not affiliated with the church. Again, that's what they always say. We're not Scientologists. We're just using a piece of the tech. Oliver, then it goes, like I said, it goes into her background where she is a real educator. She Was an educator for nearly 20 years. She had degrees from UCLA, Cal State Northridge, Pepperdine University, and yet she'd never heard of study tech and knew of no credible school that used it. And here we go. They offered me a lot of money. I took the job thinking they were actors and didn't know what best practices were. I thought study tech would be easy to work around. And then Claire Headley goes into what this study tech actually is. So let me explain it to you real quick because it sounds sensible enough. So study tech has three things. You never go past a word that you don't understand. If you ever give up a study or you leave a subject, even up to including leaving a relationship or a group, it either has, well, I don't want to get too technical because that can have to do with something called withholds and overts. If you go past a word that you don't understand on any subject, you have to not only look it up in a dictionary, but understand all the definitions, use them in a sentence until you understand each of the definitions. You have to clear the derivation, and this can often lead into what's called a word chain, where you have 10 dictionaries open because now you don't understand this word, which was in this word that you're looking up, part of the definition. Then you have to open up another dictionary, and on it goes. I spent days on one word at one time. So it seems sensible, but it's an extreme version of simply looking up a word. So we have clearing the misunderstood word. This also involves something where if you move around when you're studying, if you yawn, if you do any kind of bodily movement, it's said that the yawning, etc., is an indication that you've gone past a word you don't understand. So you get real trained to sit still, you suppress yawns, which is hard to do when you're listening to L. Ron Hubbard gibberish in particular. And this is all part of that misunderstood word part. The next part is you never go on too steep of a gradient. So if you're studying a subject and you leap too far ahead, that can also cause you to have problems in your endeavor studying. And the third one is a lack of mass. You're studying about a car, but you don't have a car in front of you. So it can get very intellectual and you could lose interest in the subject. And the way Scientology handles that on their courses is you are age regressed down to a child and you make demonstrations using clay to get the concept of what you're supposedly learning about. So maybe you could see how using a dictionary, not going on too steep of a gradient, and getting the mass of something can seem sensible when you're explaining it to outsiders. But the actual mind control techniques, like I said, playing with clay is a way of actually age regressing you. The incredible psychological torture of looking up words, the Scientology-esque way, can drive you mad. And the too steep of a gradient bullshit keeps people not only advancing in their studies, but it retracts them. So it sounds good on the outside, but in practice, it's absolute insanity. And it's one of the best mind control techniques, actually, that the cult has. For outsiders, Oliver said she quickly learned how to describe. Here we go. Oliver says she quickly learned how to describe study tech in a way that made it sound harmless. Quote, you could say, you just use a dictionary a lot. You use hands-on learning and you don't move up too fast. That's what you tell people, she says. At first, that's how she figured it would be used at the school. Right. But after accepting the job from the Smiths, she learned more about the homeschooling operation they already had going on at a house in Hidden Hills, California. Quote, I started finding out that everyone was a Scientologist and what they were really up to, she says, at the Hidden Hills house. And how apropos is that named? At the Hidden Hills house, about 10 children were being taught by 10 parents. A one-on-one ratio? Yes, it was 1-to-1. And the house was just for the schooling. They weren't even living there. All of them were Scientologists. They were doing, quote, qual and debugging, she says, using some Scientology jargon. Real quick, qual stands for qualifications. They have a thing called an organizing board, which every, quote, product has to go through. And part of that is the qualifications divisions where you fix or debug said product. So continuing on, quote, they were doing word clearing. There was ethics. All the teachers went over to the Hollywood Celebrity Center every day for other choruses. And that's another thing that I want to say. When we talk at the end about the Narconon part, I did an interview with a gal who wasn't even a Scientologist, but she became a staff member at Narconon, where it's a great interview. You have to listen to it if you haven't. But she goes into detail about this is how people are sucked into Scientology. Their front groups are, so they don't walk into the cult. So everybody knows, what to look out for here in Hollywood. They watch the videos of SPTV and they're like, fuck, they can spot it, right? But they have a shitload literally hundreds when you break it down. And we got to do a list someday about their front groups, which do use something like they bring an employee in who doesn't want to have anything to do with Scientology. And then without even them knowing it, they're doing courses on study tech or, other things like ethics conditions. And then slowly they're told, if you want to keep this job, you got to go down to the local organization and take some more courses. So many people I've met have been down this road, and this can either get them to become a Scientologist through not even knowing anything about it or stepping foot into a Scientology org. But this indoctrination is powerful, man. And this is how it fucking happens. So when Jada says that she's not using this, as you're going to hear, as she's not a Scientology member, she has nothing to do with it. And like I said, you're going to hear how evil she calls people, that she should even suggest that she's using this school as a front to get people into Scientology. This is how it works. And this is what they say. I just wanted you to be aware of that, because their front groups are so insidious, and nobody, if you don't know what they are, there you go down the rabbit hole. So, quote, all of them were Scientologists. They were doing quality debugging, she says, using some Scientology jargon. They were doing word clearing. There was ethics. And as we said, the teachers were literally sent over to the Hollywood Celebrity Center every fucking day for other courses. Besides the two children of the Smith, Jaden and Willow, by the way, who the hell names their kids that? Imagine, like, talk about getting picked on in school. The others were the children of Smith family members or family workers. Most of them took Scientology courses. Again, these family members and shit are looking up to their celebrity, relatives. And so, yeah, why not go take Scientology courses? We don't want to upset the Smith family. And what about the Smiths themselves? We told Oliver that our discussions with people who know the Smiths will lead us to believe, Smiths who knew the Smiths well, led us to believe that Jada is an ardent Scientologist who has a serious fascination with the church's e-meter. Do tell more. But that Will was more of a dabbler. Quote, if he isn't one now, at least at that time he was, or seriously considering it. He was so into study technology. There's the family as they're growing up. And look at how much they've changed too, man. I would suggest that Scientology, since the kids haven't been deprogrammed, and obviously Jada hasn't, and probably not will, these ideas still bang around in their head. And it might explain part of why those kids are crazy, man. I'm sorry, but they've just been fucked up, I think, by their narcissistic mother, and Scientology didn't frickin' help. Will Smith was interested enough in Scientology, she says, that it concerned one of his closest advisors. As the 2007-2008 school year continued, Oliver said she was busy branding the new school and working out a lease for the building. In June 2008, Will Smith's movie Hancock was opening, and Oliver says she was present when one of Will Smith's partners talked to him about promoting the film. And we already covered this, where he was warning Will, don't, like Tom Cruise, right? Don't let Scientology get in the way of the movie. Just promote the movie, goddammit. And then tax records show how much the Smiths spent, $1,235,000. And then to prepare for it, start opening the school, Oliver hired a handful of non-Scientology teachers to go along with the 10 Scientology teachers who had been running the homeschooling operation. But before the non-Scientology teachers could go near the children, here we go again, they, of course, had to get Scientology training, Oliver says. Quote, you couldn't interact with the kids until you'd taken a bunch of Scientology courses. And they were still supervised by the Scientology teachers to make sure they didn't make any mistakes using study tech. They even wanted the parents to take Scientology courses. Holy shit. I mean, talk about not keeping it on the down low. Stand by for a drink of water. And they had a course room right off campus. Well, Hubbard posters, they had Hubbard posters on the walls. Holy shit. There's another huge red flag. The kids were taught all that stuff, that if you yawned, it meant you had a misunderstood word. That's what we were talking about earlier. So what about the Smith children, Jaden and Willow? Quote, they only interacted with the Scientology teachers. They were in qual, meaning they were in trouble and had to fix the product all the time. So they did more than just study tech. They were learning to become actual Scientologists. Oh, definitely. They were learning all the lingo. They had choruses at the house. I also contemplated whether or not to show you some Will Smith movies that have Scientology jargon in them. One of them was After Earth or some shit like that. There's even Scientology movies that Will Smith and that movie with him and his son, I would say, are very Scientology-esque as well. So they were learning all the lingo. They had choruses at the house. So Scientology, and not just study tech, constituted a heavy presence at the New Village Leadership Academy. Quote, it was the basis for the whole school. That was the overarching reason for it. Will Smith would even say it has to be 100% in, 100% standard tech. She says, indicating Smith's order that Scientology processes should be followed to the letter. Quote, I had this whole lineup of Scientology courses that I was required to take, and several of them were at the Celebrity Center, Oliver says. They told me I had to be the expert on study tech, but what that really meant was I had to keep taking Scientology course after Scientology course. You can see her getting indoctrinated, and finally her spidey senses finally go off, and she gets the hell out of there. So it gets deeper and deeper, and at some point you wonder, what the hell am I doing here? As the 2008-2009 school year progressed, Oliver increasingly chafed under the heavy Scientology presence at the school. Quote, could have been a great school, but they were so vigilant about the Scientology aspect of it. In a fourth grade class, they were reading a first grade text because they were so worried about the kids running into a misunderstood word. Again, they don't want to go on too steep of a gradient, so they're actually backtracking, as you can see here. If a couple of kids got into a scuffle at recess, that also had to be the result of a misunderstood word. It was so dull. The teachers were so bogged down following these rules, but that's what Will and Jada wanted. This is bringing back childhood memories, man, of how I was handled by my pops. In November 2008, Oliver went to the Smith and said that things weren't working out, but they asked her, of course, to stick to the program or go to ethics. In January 2009, however, the Smiths brought in Piano Foster to be the director of the curriculum. Foster was married to the Smith family trainer, and she began pushing for a stricter reliance on study tech, only exacerbating the situation. Quote, in February, I told them I couldn't do this, Oliver says. The parents were complaining, finally, that it turned out to be Scientology. A lot of them left. I kept telling them, no, it's secular, of course. But then I'd walk by a room and see kids doing clay frickin' demos, and I felt sick. Eventually, my professional integrity wouldn't allow me to stay there anymore. So the Smiths let her go in June 2009. Quote, after I got fired, there were lawsuits by other teachers and parents. I think they toned it down a bit. But all but one of the non-Scientology teachers she brought in, Oliver says, were of course let go after her departure. And before we get into the table talk shit, let me just read, just to provide more of a background on what one of the other teachers had to say real quick. So Will and Jada Smith's New Village Academy was, quote, a front for Scientology, says ex-teacher. And this guy right here is the one speaking out, or that did speak out. And his name is Jawa. A former teacher at Will and Jada Smith's private elementary school was claimed that it was actually, quote, a front for Scientology, where young children were quietly taught the ways of the controversial church. The homeschool reportedly initially saw 20 to 30 students before a real one was started on a campus close to Indian Hills High School. So they were basically homeschooling the kids, and then they made it into an official school. Speaking with the son, Jawa said, there's no question about it. The New Village Leadership Academy was a Scientology school. This was an elementary school, and they had books on Scientology in the library and elsewhere. Will and Jada both have time and again denied their and their school's connections to Scientology. The Oscar-winning actor in 2006 had said, quote, oh, here we go. I've talked to Tom Cruise about it. There's lots of incredible, wonderful concepts, but Jada and I don't necessarily believe in organized religion. I was raised in a Baptist household, and my grandmother would get up out of her casket if I became a Scientologist. Again, I can't tell you how many frickin' Scientologists have said that to deny being Scientologists to their outsiders. Since I've been reading forever, I just wanted to take a quick break and see if there's any questions or what's going on in here. Might as well throw this up. If you have any questions or comments that you'd like to take up, just throw them up there with the question marks, and we can take it as we go. And we do have one. BCC, how are you, my friend? Can you put a link to the interview of the Scientology front organization from Scientology staff member? Absolutely. In fact, this is what the video looks like, my friend. Obviously, we're not just going to sit here and play it tonight, but it's right here. This is Samantha Broom, a lovely, lovely woman who talks about a horrendous story being the staff member at Narconon. Narconon, Scientology's most insidious front group. I will for sure link that in the description box. So, so let's carry on with this real quick, and then we'll get into the roundtable table talk video with Leah Remini and Jada Smith, and then that'll give me an opportunity to go through your questions. So throw them and/or comments if you just want to say something. Besides, and this is back to one of the teachers that has since left and spoken out about the Scientology front group, named Jawa. Besides, in 2009, the 50-year-old actress had said, "All I can say is it is not," this is in reference to Jada when she's confronted about this. And again, in her book, she says the same bullshit. "All I can say is it's not a Scientology school." Now, if you don't trust me, here's where her narcissism kicks in. If you don't trust me, there are going to be consequences. If you don't trust me, if you're questioning my integrity, that's a whole different matter. That is straight evil to think that I would bring families into that educational institution and then try to get them to convert into some religion. Notice she's very vague, doesn't use the word Scientology there, and rather than answer the question honestly, she makes it the questioner's fault for daring to question her. Again, in 2020, she had insisted, quote, "For me, all religions have been my home," which is why I don't have a problem going to the cult of Scientology and saying, "I'm not a Scientologist. I just want to be here and see what you have to offer." Utter horseshit. There's no way anybody walks in and says that. You're very thoroughly felt out to make sure what your intentions are, and you better be there to at least be open-minded to Scientology. But Jawa asserted Will and Jada have denied it, but there was definitely a drastic tilt towards Scientology in that school. The guest robotics lecturer, that's him, is not the only one to claim such a thing. Previously, Jacqueline Oliver, who was the first head teacher of the NVLA, had stated that the institution was essentially a Scientology school, which blatantly showcased books and photos by the church's founder, L. Ron Hubbard. Oliver, of course, being the principal that we just talked about. Not just that, definitions and terms related to Scientology were also used openly. Oliver added, quote, "My feeling is that Jada was really into Scientology and Will was sort of whatever, but he took all the courses too." This is interesting too. And Sam Freeman here caught a lot of flack for saying this, but I believe her. Another person to make such a claim was reportedly Sam Freeman. That's Placido Domingo's daughter-in-law, who was earlier a member of the Scientology cult. And she's since spoken out quite a bit, by the way. She said, quote, "When I moved to LA from Clearwater, Florida, I was just hanging out with celebrities and their kids at Celebrity Center. Jada would always be around. There was a Sunday buffet where you can invite your friends." I've talked about that a lot, where it's like, if you want to bring somebody in, they have some nice food and shit, and they have a restaurant that you can just hang out there without being jumped on right away. But that's often a first step to get people interested in Scientology, where after they're finished with their meal, they might take them around for a tour of the cult facilities. Continuing on, there was a Sunday buffet where you can invite your friends, and they brought in Daphne Wayans, her then husband Keenan, and 5 kids. Daphne told me that Jada had introduced them to Scientology. Daphne was really excited telling me all this, but that's what Jada did. She was charged with getting people into Scientology. Remember how earlier she said she would didn't like being accused of doing that very thing, and that you're evil if you say she did? Jada was always around Celebrity Center doing her own thing with Kelly Preston, John Travolta's late wife, RIP, in the president's office. They were like Stepford wives of Scientology, Freeman added. The Sun report stated that Jawa was offered the job. Okay. "I've worked in very poor schools in the past, but she said you don't have to worry about those things here. Just tell us what you need and we'll get it. I was blown away by the school and the money that was poured into it. In a regular school, we'd struggle to buy the right equipment, but here they would buy $10,000 to $20,000 worth of items with the snap of a finger." Again, who could resist, right? Jawa also reportedly claimed that he was not treated badly by Will and Jada. He fondly recalled, quote, "He, Will, was very interested and respectful, although he did bow to me like I was Japanese. I'm Indian. Though I took that to be a sign of respect, not anything mean. But Jada, on the other hand, I would see coming and going. The way Jada treats you is she walks past you like you're a tree trunk or something. She doesn't acknowledge you exist. But Will Smith, I'd say, is much more of a warm person." Again, I will link the series to HG TUDOR, where he goes into the whole Will Smith slap fiasco and all this shit. And, Will Smith does seem to be an empathic person trapped in a relationship with a narcissist. And that slap, whether staged or not, who the fuck knows, had him reacting in a way that made him look like the narcissist. But I would say he's trapped in a relationship. And Will, all you got to do, man, is just learn about this subject, and light bulb moments galore would go off with the past X amount of years with your wife, and you could get the fuck out of there. So to lead into the red table talk thing, let me just read you a little bit more of this. Okay, I see we have a question from Wendy. So let me grab you real quick, my friend. Good point to take a break too. I've just been sitting here reading forever. Wendy, how are you? The dinner is probably part of the personality test you spoke of earlier before the tour. And if they're worthy, yeah, it'll either be going down. I mean, I did this with people, Wendy. It's embarrassing to admit, but the problem, even when you are a Scientologist, is it's freaky to your friends. I didn't want to bring people in because the way I had it framed in my head was I also thought it was weird and a con at the beginning. But my dad got me over that hump, and I eventually got to experience the hypnotic wins in Scientology, which made me a dedicated believer. So whenever it came to bringing people in, I would bring them in via, come and have some lunch or whatever, and then take the personality test, like you say, Wendy, or let's get a tour of the place. There was always an alternative motive. I knew I had to get my friends over the weird part, and then if they could just experience the auditing, if they could just learn a little bit about the study tech, if they could just cross over that hump, they'll see the wins and they'll take to it. But before that, I knew that my friends, when I brought them down to CC, were going into a very strange place, and they would often freak out. And that's why I didn't proselytize too much, man, for that very reason that you're kind of highlighting here, Wendy. Okay, so let me carry on. We're almost to the table talk video where I can relax and get more of your guys' questions. But this is not too long of a read. And it has to do with, Leah's involvement in confronting Jada, where she was spot on, but kind of got manipulated, as you'll see in the interview. So inside Will and Jada Pinkett-Smith Scientology School for Kids, Molding Young Minds, exactly. These are the aforementioned former teachers and administrators at the Smith shuttered New Village Leadership Academy, and they revealed to the Daily Beast here in 2020 that despite their public denials, it was a Scientology school. If you guys want to cut through all the bullshit on what we just covered, and you want one link to get the most detail, this is it. I'll link it at the top in the description box so you can get the whole gist of it, but we're not going to read all of it. We covered the basics. So there was some healing that needed to happen. And so in October 2018, Hollywood superstar Will Smith joined his wife, Jada Pinkett-Smith, for a special 2-part episode of her Facebook watch series, Red Table Talk. 1 year prior, the Daily Beast had published an interview with Leah Remini, the ex-Scientologist turned whistleblower, who alleged, correctly, that Pinkett-Smith was a devoted practitioner of Scientology, a costly endeavor. Reaching its highest operating Thetan levels can cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. And you'll also notice in the Red Table Talk that Leah hints that Jada Pinkett-Smith was actually able to advance much quicker because she was a celebrity, which can happen. I'm reminded of Nicole Kidman, who, even though she worked her ass off to get up there, with an X amount of months, she went from the bottom of the bridge all the way up to OT2, which took me, a public member, about 10 years to do, to give you an example of the difference between being a celebrity and not, and how fast you can go up the Colts Bridge. Okay, so that comprises, so these costly upper levels, as you guys probably know, comprise tales of intergalactic overlords, specifically Xenu, dead alien souls, body thetans, and the curious theory that humans evolve from clams. I know Jade is in it. She's been in Scientology for a long time, Remini told me. Quote, I never saw Will Smith there, but I saw Jada at the Celebrity Center. They opened up a Scientology school and have since closed it. But Jada, I had seen her at the Scientology Celebrity Center all the time. Again, she's claiming she was never a member. No one, even a celebrity, is going to be able to be there all the time unless they're a fucking Scientologist. Remini's referring to the Scientology Celebrity Center in Hollywood, California. All right, so hold on. Let's clear some rumors, just to have it on record, offered Will that day on Red Table Talk. Quote, we've never been Scientologists. We've never been swingers. Well, we know that turned out to be a little bit of a lie. A little over a week ago, the couple confessed in terribly awkward fashion. That the quote, swingers portion of that statement was misleading at best. As for the Scientologist part, well, that doesn't appear to be entirely true either. The Smiths and the cult of Scientology, of course, did not respond to numerous requests for comments. So let's check out this Red Table Talk video. And just to give some backstory in case you guys don't know what the hell this thing is. After Leah accused accurately, just basically saying the truth. I saw, her down at the Celebrity Center all the time. This is the school she opened, etc. Leah supposedly reached out to Jada. It would never be the other way around, right? To mend things. And since Jada's little talk show was all about mending, healing and stuff, under the guise of, what a sick show. Have you guys seen that Red Table Talk? The last person you'd want to have a healing with is someone like Jada, in my opinion. But Leah, I would say, got a little bit manipulated to backtrack on the allegations she rightly made and kind of apologize to Jada. But at the same time, she also called her out and wasn't totally buying her bullshit. I can't find the full video of this. I know Aaron Smith Levin has it on his channel. I'll try to find that and link it so you can watch the whole video. But I couldn't find the full video on YouTube, but we don't need to go into it anyway, since these are the highlights. But check out this exchange between a narcissist and an empath like Leah, man, and what's going on here when she talks about the Scientology issue. And notice how she's just so creepy here, the way she diverts the attention.
Right. I was just caught up in that pain. Yeah. Right? Yeah.
Let me rewind it here.
I'm sorry that I didn't consider you, because I didn't. Right. I was so caught up in the, I don't want to cry. I was just caught up in that pain. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And also the pain of others. Yeah. And the effects that it had.
Jada Pinkett-Smith and Leah Remini.
Just want to say something real quick. Leah's feeling bad there for the allegations that she made, but they were correct. So she doesn't have anything to apologize for.
That pain. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And also the pain of others. Yeah. And the effects that it had.
Jada Pinkett-Smith and Leah Remini coming face-to-face on Jada's Facebook Watch series, Red Table Talk.
Leah reached out to me, and she opened a space for healing between us. I embraced it. Yep. And so we decided to bring it to the table.
The sit-down is years in the making. The actresses fell out when Leah publicly accused Jada of being a Scientologist after an appearance on Bravo's Watch What Happens Live with Andy Cohen, on which Jada made light of Leah's claims in her 2015 book Troublemaker about participating in a game of adult hide-and-go-seek at Tom Cruise's house.
Have you played hide-and-seek at Tom Cruise's house before?
This is when our kids were really small.
Okay.
And Tom loved games. That was the whole point of Tom was just fun like that. Yeah. So I know she kind of made it seem kind of weird.
Right. Yeah, that's not creepy or anything. They were playing hide-and-go. Maybe, she, again, gives a very good explanation to counter Leah's accusations that, hey, man, we're just playing hide-and-go-seek in the backyard with our kids. But it sounds a little bit more creepy than that. And it's just weird to watch Jada, as Leah says later, basically fair game her, meaning trying to make fun of what Leah says and mock it and then turn it into something where it can easily, quote unquote, be explained away.
Were really small.
Okay.
And Tom loved games. That was the whole point of Tom was just fun like that. Yeah. So I know she kind of made it seem kind of weird. Right. But it really wasn't. It was just a bunch of us goofing off with our kids and playing silly games.
Fair game is a policy in Scientology that calls for the utter destruction of a critic of Scientology. Got it. You get trained on how to do this. You first deal with it with a laugh, like it's boring. And the second thing is to discredit the facts. That's why I said, then Jada's a Scientologist, because there's no reason for Jada to be doing that other than fair gaming me.
Just so you know, I wasn't fair gaming you on Andy Cohen.
But it was textbook.
This talk was the first time Jada ever explained her involvement with the controversial church, which Leah, of course, left.
For years, it's been rumored that I was a Scientologist because I took some courses at the church and was interested in study tech, one of the organization's teaching methods. I also opened a school that used the study tech, which added to the speculation.
You saw me at the Scientology Center. I love religion because I grew up in the ethical society.
Yeah.
So my grandmother...
I'm missing so much stuff here, but I'm getting you guys' questions. So here comes a justification about, Jada was singing at the Scientology Celebrity Center. You don't get offered to do that unless you're part of the crew or you're doing those Christmas stories that we showed you earlier. And then also you saw how she just, Leah did call her out there and says, but that's textbook or whatever. And she just kind of laughs it off. If you don't mind, guys, let me just roll it back like 30 seconds. It'll give me a chance to get your questions more. And then we can, with that information, we could just see how manipulative this woman is.
No reason for Jada to be doing that other than fair gaming me.
Just so you know, I wasn't fair gaming you on Andy Cohen.
Right, but it was textbook.
This talk was the first time Jada ever explained her involvement with the controversial church, which Leah, of course, left.
For years, it's been rumored that I was a Scientologist because I took some courses at the church and was interested in study tech, one of the organization's teaching methods. I also opened a school that used the study tech, which added to the speculation.
You saw me at the Scientology Center. I love religion because I grew up in the ethical society.
Yeah.
So my grandmother was like, you're going to learn all the religions and then you got to decide which one.
Yeah.
You want to practice.
Love that.
So for me, all religions have been my home.
Sure.
Which is why I didn't have a problem going to the Church of Scientology and saying, I'm not a Scientologist. I want to just be here and see what you have to offer.
Right.
Because that was my life.
Because of Jada's celebrity status, Leah says she got access to Scientology texts that most people would have to work years for and spend lots of money to get their hands on. But Jada made it clear she's never
Did you guys hear that? She got the celebrity treatment where she's able to somehow advance on the courses where and go much quicker. Let me just pull that back.
Status. Leah says she got
I just wanted to point that out because that wasn't known to me as a public Scientologist. And if you were to ask a Scientologist, they would say, no way. We have to follow the tech, go up the bridge the exact way. And there is no celebrity treatment. I was completely oblivious of it. Even when I did finally get invited to the president's office, I probably would have found that out. But luckily I woke up right in time. But Scientologists don't know that the celebrities in general can go up the bridge much faster and access their secret levels quicker.
And saying, I'm not a Scientologist. I want to just be here and see what you have to offer.
Right.
Because that was my life.
Because of Jada's celebrity status, Leah says she got access to Scientology texts that most people would have to work years for and spend lots of money to get their hands on. But Jada made it clear she's never officially joined the church and supports Leah's search for Shelley Miscavige, the wife of Scientology leader David Miscavige, who has not been seen publicly in years.
Okay, again, you never have to officially join the church. Sooner or later, please check out the Where Shelley Miscavige video. It does drive me nuts that where Shelley mantra goes on. We know where she's at. She's at the Church of Spiritual Technology. She's brainwashed and wants to be there. I understand Leah's wanting to, pull her out. But saying Where Shelley, in my opinion, is not accurate, and it just keeps this fantasy going where if this is my opinion, if she showed up to release, let's say the police showed up at CST where she's at, she's not going to say, oh, thank God you saved me. She's going to say, go fuck yourself. I want to be here, because she's fucking under mind control like we all are. Another example is if you were to go up to Int Base or, they don't have Int Base is international management where the hole was at and stuff. Now they kind of had their headquarters at their media production, so to speak, here in Hollywood. My point being, if you were to go to a public Scientologist or even a super indentured slave at international base and say, raise your hand if you want to leave, if the police and the FBI went in there, I would say one or two, if any, would actually raise their hands, because they're so brainwashed. We are so brainwashed as Scientologists that the outside world, including police, government, the media, etc., have it all wrong. We have the tech, and we don't need to be saved from anyone. We actually would like you to go away, and we want to be here. It's like North Korea brainwashing, man, where your reality is reframed, where you don't feel like you're in a trap. You have phobias installed to make you afraid of the very police and FBI that would go in there and save you. I do think Shelley's alive. We know where she's at. And perhaps she should be rescued, and you'd have to pull her out of there. But she doesn't want to fucking leave, man. Anyways, let's get to the that's my opinion. Let's get to the Narconon part. So you saw that she had mentioned that, and I'm sure that Tom Cruise probably had a hand in this as a guess, that she got her father into the Narconon program because it wasn't enough just to get the study tech into school. She's, moving up the levels quickly, as we just heard. She's a freaking member, despite what she says. And so, of course, she's going to get other people in, as she mentioned. And part of that was her father, where she sent him to a very dangerous, like we said before, fake pseudo drug rehabilitation program. And here's just a quick 2-minute clip on what that program's about. Like I said, I'll link in the description box this video right here. It's a very powerful interview that Samantha gave, and you can hear what she has to say, working there. And this is what this is another controversial. This is another Scientology front group to be massively made aware of, because they capture a lot of people with this program.
A controversial rehab facility in Pittsburgh County linked to Scientology is under fire again. This weekend, top officials at Narconon Arrowhead were stripped of their counseling certifications. The National Association of Forensic Counselors would not comment on why, but says it's investigating. And tonight, for the first time, we hear from a former Narconon Arrowhead patient and employee.
He accuses the facility of unethical practices. 2 News reporter Sarah Goldenberg explains why in this 2 News exclusive. Sarah?
Russ, Jake Wilson hopes sharing his story will spark change. He worries about patient safety. Now, even lawmakers are getting involved in hopes of better regulating Narconon.
I actually knew about him.
Last June, Jake Wilson of Edmond sought out help for his addiction to alcohol from Narconon Arrowhead.
Real quick, this is an infamous case that came out a few years ago at Narconon Arrowhead, where there was 3 deaths back to back, but that happens all the time at Narconon. And this was a really high-profile case that's being discussed here. And yet they still haven't shut him down, which is remarkable.
Helped me. I believe in a lot of senses that it depends on the person.
Just a month later, 20-year-old Stacy Murphy of Owasso died at the facility, prompting an investigation as the 3rd death at Narconon in under a year.
It was just kind of swept to the side, kept away from us students at the time.
Despite some worries, Jake says he stayed at Narconon to help others as an employee. He quit just a few weeks ago after growing concerns.
Didn't seem too ethical. People were getting really sick in certain situations, denied, certain things that I believe that should have been handled.
Jake wants to see more regulation, and he's not the only one.
We don't need any more deaths, and it's a tragic situation what's happened down at Narconon, and I hope to prevent that from ever happening again.
Senator Tom Ivester wants the Oklahoma Department of Mental Health to have more regulatory power over rehab facilities. Right now, Narconon Arrowhead is accredited by a national independent organization.
I want them to operate in a safe manner. And if they have to change their standards to do that, then they got to change their standards.
Jake believes Narconon focuses too much on money and not enough on its patients' health.
It's no joke, and with the circumstances that have happened over the last summertime, and just recently, it needs to be changed.
The Pittsburgh County Sheriff's Office handed the investigation of Narconon Arrowhead over to the DA's office a few months ago. At least 5 lawsuits are pending against Narconon. Sarah Goldenberg, 2 News, works for you.
Sarah.
Okay, so what do you guys think with the evidence laid out? Is Jada Pinkett-Smith bullshitting in her new book, Unworthy, that she was never a Scientology member? Is she downplaying her Scientology involvement? And the real question is, since she seems to be still has affection for the cult, is she still a Scientologist? Does she indoctrinate her kids into this gibberish to this day? Let us know either in the comments afterwards or, well, since we're going to be rolling out of here shortly, let us know what your thoughts are. But it's not a big surprise. I just wanted to do a video since she wrote a book and it appertains to Scientology, but it's also a good study of narcissism and manipulation. I think it's pretty obvious, that she's full of shit. But I'd like to hear from you guys what you have to say. So before we roll out of here, I did start your questions. Oh, I wanted to, it's been a few weeks too since I actually thanked the people that contribute to just cover the monthly cost of the channel via a coffee page. So let me just read out the last 3 weeks worth to do some house cleaning, because I do appreciate it. You don't have to contribute, but the people that actually took the time to go over and drop a few bucks, I really appreciate it. That would be Jackie Howell, Lady Veritas made a very generous contribution. Thank you, Lady. Philosophy always helps out. PT Bird, not to be confused with Pit Bird, which is what I accidentally feel. I don't know. PT Bird always seems like Pit Bird, but that was explained to me what it means, and it's very interesting. Louise, thank you very much. Jane Brown, SB, Nancy Clark, Roxy, a regular contributor. There's Philosophy again. Thank you. Susanna became a member. Thank you, Susanna. Nancy Clark, PFH111, Cat Jack, Jenny became a member. Jenny also bought a coffee. Thanks, Jenny. This is someone you can remain anonymous if you wish to. And Jen Nelson, that covers the last 3 weeks. Thank you, my friends. And getting to the questions before I roll out of here. Wendy, how are you? If you don't mind linking this, by the way, Wendy, because YouTube will bury the link, but if you put a link in here, because I'm going to try to find what you're talking about here, but if not, could you please link it? And then the way you guys find it is when you go to comments where it says top and newest, YouTube will bury links if you're just at top, but if you hit newest, you can usually uncover the comments with the link. So if you wouldn't mind, Wendy, she says there's another video between Leah and Jada discussing the red table incident and the miscommunication of what was said. Interesting. It was held at the Smith house because Jada is on home turf. Very interesting. That is ringing a bell too. I think I might have seen that. I'll search for it, Wendy, but if you have the time to throw down the link, please let us know. Thanks for that. Manifest, what's going down? Have you watched HD Tutor on Jada and Will? Doug? Yeah, we even did an interview that appertained to that right when he did that series. And I'll link the whole series of him discussing that, specifically the slap incident, him breaking down that he said that, and I think it's right, even though when the incident was happening, people were like, that can't be, that Will Smith is actually an empath, an empathic person captured in a relationship with a narcissist, and he did a fantastic breakdown on that. Thanks for reminding me, Manifest. I will link that in the description box after we're done. Philosophy, what's going down? Doug, can you tell us about how Scientology and the ego of Hollywood stars works together? Well, I mean, you just said it. What else is there to know? A lot of people, I don't think it's any surprise, are driven to Hollywood. I'll use myself as an example because they want to be famous, and maybe you don't get the love from your family, or you want people to like you, right? That wasn't totally my motivation. I liked acting since I was a kid. It was sincere, but a big part of it was to get the love I didn't get from my parents. I thought when I finally got on television, all the people that bullied me and talked down to me would think differently. And I really thought that was going to solve my problems. So I woke up in January 2008, which I've talked about excessively in the past, so I won't bore you. But a quote unquote frenemy from my acting class dropped off a book that got me out of the cult in a single day. So from that point forward, it became, what I'm trying to say is right when I finally got my big break in Hollywood, I got on a television show and my dreams were going to happen. I signed with a big agency. I was basically guaranteed to have a career right before this book was dropped off. And I've never felt, as I said before, so shitty that I was missing something. I thought this would handle all my problems, and I thought everybody would love me. So I would suggest, and I don't think it's everybody by a long shot, but a lot of people get into Hollywood that either are narcissists or maybe they're broken people that want people to look up to them by becoming famous. That doesn't work, by the way, guys. I can tell you, I had all these ego goals. I had a plan for my life that was all mapped out. I was using Scientology to do it scientifically, and I thought I was kicking ass in life. And like I said, when I finally made it and that book was dropped off, I had to learn in the second half of my life what was really important. And then I was chasing basically bullshit the whole time. I still love acting. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just that it wasn't, there was another way of looking at that didn't have to do with what I thought I was following. That's another reason I say, thank God I had that breakdown so I can have a breakthrough. Because short of that book being dropped off, I was going to have a big career. I'm sure I'd be another mind control slave in Hollywood. I'd be a program Scientologist, and I'd be none the wiser. But I wouldn't trade that for fucking anything because I feel like I dodged a massive bullet. Thanks for that question. Flowdrill, what's going down, man? I've also experienced the same type of behavior. Sorry, I don't know that was probably in the chat. I just wanted to say hi to you, man. That's why I started the question, but I'm sure that appertains to something you guys were chatting about in the chat. Okay. Apostate Alex, I'm going to get to you in 1 second, brother. You're the last one. Okay. End. I can't see that enough, my friend. I can see the comment, but end of. Okay. Sorry that I can't pronounce that. Is there a space for people like Jada to be in the cult in good standing and be able to interact with SPs and swing, etc.? Is there a space for people like Jada to be in the cult in good standing and be able? Good question. I don't know about interacting with SPs. I mean, you saw Jada interacting with Leah, but that might be to handle. Let's say that Jada's not a Scientologist, all right? Let's assume that until we know otherwise. She still sounds like she has some love of it. She didn't discount it when she could have in her recent memoir. So it might be a way to use Leah and Jada as an example to handle Leah, to take a little bit of the pressure off and to make it, to dead agent her, basically. I'm not saying that's what she did, but that's the only example where I can think of where if you're a star, you might be able to talk to an SP because perhaps the cult is whispering in your ear to handle that person. But normal people like me, public members, staff members, Sea Org members, etc. Well, the Sea Org members never get to see the light of day. But no, man, we don't interact with people. In fact, we boot them out of our lives in general. The only reason you talk to an SP is to try to get them back into the cult. My dad, before, as an example, before I really said what I wanted to say, because it was scary to tell my dad and my mom over a period of time the depth of doubt that I was having. So as I got more bold and telling my dad finally, I fucking hate Scientology. God damn it. Why did you raise me in this? I can't fucking stand it. It's destroying my life. Dad, please fucking help me out. At that point, they disconnected and pulled back. So no, man, SPs are the equivalent, like I said before, of Hitler and the devil combined. They are to be avoided at all costs. They're trying to destroy Scientology, and they're unsalvageable up until the point they get back into the cult. It's a great question, my friend. Thank you. It's just my opinion, too. It doesn't mean it right. Apostate Alex, what's going on? Doug, if you would be open, I would be. I would be more than happy to join you on a live to clear things up. Okay, let's set it up. And answer your questions regarding the protest. Okay, fair enough. But I really like to ask you about the Goldie situation, Alice, because that's been bumping around, and it'd be nice to know kind of where you stand on that. And I do have some questions to ask you if you want to do it. But also understand if you'd rather not. No, I will, man. But Alex, listen, man, I don't want to say this too much publicly. Why don't you hit me up behind the scenes? I want to ask you what I intend to ask you, the questions I'd have for you. And then if you want to do that and you feel comfortable, absolutely, you can come on and we'll do that. But I don't want to make it a fucking drama or anything. But I do have some questions if you want to come on, my friend. Okay, I think that's it for now. And it's only apropos to end off with the Scientollywood outro. So we'll probably be back. Well, there's definitely more stuff to cover. So we'll probably be back tomorrow morning and or afternoon. In the meantime, my friends, if you don't mind, since it helps the video apparently, although I hate saying this shit, please like, share, subscribe, and we'll see you on the other side.
Found out long ago. It's a long way down the holiday road. Holiday road. Holiday road. Jack be nimble, Jack be quick. Take a ride on the West Coast.
What's your dream? Some dreams come true, some don't. But keep on dreaming. This is